So 1 foot bounce, the first thing that you want to look at is specificity. So in terms of specificity, what ranges of motion are you hitting in the movement? For a 1 foot jump, that's a quarter squat, right? It's different from a 2 foot jump. You're in a half squat. Second, what muscles are the ones that are used the most? In 1 foot, you use your lower leg a lot, so your calf, your hamstring, your glutes, that posterior chain, you're going to use it way more than in a 2 foot jump. And then, of course, there's knee extension, so you would use your quads as well. Third thing we want to look at, so we looked at the range of motion, which you're in a quarter squat. We looked at the muscles that you use. The third thing is you want to look at the ground contact times. For a 1 foot jump, for a speed jumper, elite speed jumper, they're on the ground for like 1700 to 18 or 0.17 seconds to 0.18 seconds. A power jump is going to be a little higher, like 0.2 seconds. So from there, the exercises that are most specific, that are most similar to those three things are the ones that are going to help the most. So just take it for a further step down. So anything in the weight room, anything that's going to train the quad in a quarter squat is going to help a lot. Any hamstring exercise is going to help a lot, especially with the knee a little bit more in extension, not a lot of flexion. So like think of like a Nordic when you're at the very bottom, right? That's going to transfer a lot. Hip thrust is going to transfer a lot. Deadlift is going to transfer a lot. Hang cleans, right? Hang cleans, very high rate of force development, shorter ranges of motion. That's going to transfer a ton. Then on the plyometric side, plyos are going to transfer way more because the ground contact times are shorter. So depth jumps, single leg bounding, single leg hopping, sprinting, all that stuff is going to be the most specific. So they're going to be the best exercises for jumping. But of course, in training, you always want to go general to specific. So you want to start with things that aren't as specific, right? Like deep squatting, and that type of thing. More hypertrophy ranges, like 8 to 12 reps. And then over the course of the year, right before you want to jump high, you want to be doing those more specific exercises. Diet is very important, but more important than that is tracking your calories. For jumping, you want to be as lean as possible. You want your body fat percentage to be ideally under 10%. For you look like you're pretty lean. It looks like you're naturally lean. So it's not something that's probably going to be a huge emphasis for you, right? But generally, you just want to eat clean, stay away from processed foods. Don't eat junk food, candy, pastries, like stuff like that. You want to stay away from that stuff. You want to get in enough protein, at least 1 gram per pound of body weight. I know you're from Serbia, so you probably use metric system.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Russians when I raised.
Yeah. So as long as you're getting in enough protein, and then you're eating cleanly, and you're eating at a level, for someone like you, I would eat at a slight caloric surplus. So what I would do is use an app to track like your calories, like how much you eat. Track it for 2 weeks straight. 2 weeks straight, track exactly how many calories, everything you're eating. Don't change how you eat. And then write down your body weight. Test your body weight every morning. And then at the end of 2 weeks, you're going to be able to tell, okay, I ate on average X amount of calories and my body weight went up, stayed the same, or went down. And then you'll know around how many calories you need to eat. For me personally, I use intuitive eating. I only tracked for a short period of time 3 years ago. That way I could tell around how much I need to eat to maintain weight. And now I eat cleanly, I eat until I'm full, and then I don't overeat. As soon as I'm full, I stop eating. When I get hungry again, I'll eat again. Your body generally is really good at telling you when you need nutrients, right? And aside from that, I just try to drink a ton of water throughout the day. And yeah, that's pretty much for what I do for diet. For reference, when I was 16, I was about 5'11", so a little bit shorter than you. And my vertical was, I believe, this was actually right when I was going to turn 17. So around when I was 17. I was around 5'11", 6 foot. I had a 34-inch running vertical, and I think like a 28 standing vertical, just for reference. And I believe I could squat around 225. My deadlift was like right at 315. Power clean was probably around like 185, I want to say at that time. A year later, so this is when I was 17, about to turn 18. I could do between legs dunks. Vertical was getting probably close to 40, maybe at 40 inches. I was 6'1", so closer to your proportions. And I was cleaning 205 pounds. I could deep squat, like ass to grass, 275 pounds. Deadlift was probably around 340-ish, around there. I didn't test front squat very much around that time. Those were basically the main 3 lifts I used to test a lot. And then when I started getting close to like a mid-40s vertical, like 40, 43, 44 around there, I was like 19, 20 years old. I was able to deadlift 365. I could power clean 225, 235 around there. Squat was like 315. And yeah, I think those were my numbers. Squat might have been like 295, ass to grass. And then yeah, and then all those numbers just started going up from there. I do not overcomplicate rest days at all. Typically, when athletes ask for recovery workouts, the traditional stuff that you think about is like ice baths, massages, foam rolling, right? That type of thing. All those things are recovery modalities, and there is not enough research to back that stuff up. Most of the beneficial effects from recovery modalities are just placebo. You know what a placebo is?
I know.
A placebo is basically when you think there's going to be a benefit behind something, and then there is a benefit, but it's psychological, right? So it's like the traditional way is like like medicine, like when you take a pill for a headache. There's experiments that have been done where they give people sugar pills. It's just pills that have sugar inside of it. It doesn't have any medicine inside. And they tell the subjects that, hey, take this pill, and in 15 minutes, you're going to feel pain relief. They take it, guess what happens in 15 minutes? They experience pain relief. But it's because of the psychological effect of it. So icing, massages, foam rolling, all that stuff, that's going to be all placebo effects, basically. So my advice for recovery days is be a vegetable. Do as little as possible. Get as much sleep as possible, 8 to 10 hours. Just getting enough sleep is going to do 99% of the recovery. That's number one, is getting enough sleep. Everything else, my advice for it is if it makes you feel good, like let's say you like massages, you enjoy them, or you like ice baths and you enjoy them, keep doing it because the psychological effects are going to help you. But if it's a struggle and you're forcing yourself to do, like take a cold shower or something like that, it's actually going to be a stressor and it might not help you recover. But yeah, that's basically my outlook on recovery. Nope. Short answer is no. It's not going to stunt. Yep, it's not going to stunt your growth. It's a myth. The number one thing for preventing injuries is to do elastic work, play your sport, run, sprint, do plyos, jump. All that stuff is going to strengthen your ankle and your lower leg and the exact amounts that you need to handle the sport that you're playing. And then the second rule is try to go as long as possible without spraining an ankle. The number one predictor of a sprained ankle is have you sprained your ankle in the past. The longer you can go playing your sport, doing intense loading and activity without going through an ankle sprain, the stronger it's going to get. And if you do go through an ankle sprain, there are things that you can do to rehab the process. The number one thing I like to do is just banded ankle circuits. So you get a band, wrap the band around your foot, and then go this way, boom, practice this way, practice up, down. And that's going to help with getting your ankle back to 100% health. But the number one thing is just loading it in the weight room, loading it through plyos, elastic work in your sport. Number one is jumping, honestly. Like, that is going to be the most specific thing, and you can do it anywhere. All right. If you're stuck at home, you can't make it out to the gym. The best thing you can do is literally max effort jumps. Like I used to, when I was in high school, my house had a really high ceiling. I still remember the height of the ceiling. It was 10 feet and 8 inches. And I always liked practicing because you need to jump about 6 to 8 inches above the rim to be able to dunk. So I knew, I was like, if I can just barely touch it, I know I can dunk on the day. And I literally would just, for like an hour or two straight, I would just try to touch my ceiling. So that is like the number one thing. Everything else is going to have such smaller loading compared to the weight room that I would honestly just prefer athletes to just jump if you're indoors and you don't have access to a weight room. So for 2-foot jumping, it's actually very important. Just how you use the muscles in your lower leg to jump. Remember I was saying the most specific exercises are the ones that target the muscles you use when you jump? Yeah. When you jump off 2 feet, the muscles that you use a ton in your upper body are your traps, shoulders, right? That's this. Yeah. When you swing your arms back like that, that's all traps, upper back, shoulders. And then same thing, when you do the upswing, that's all shoulders right here, a little bit of chest. So very important for 2-foot jumping, specifically your relative strength. So you want to get stronger compared to your body weight when it comes to your upper body. For 1 foot, it's not as important. You don't use the arms as much. With 1 foot, you just want to be as light as possible, basically. So you're a 1 foot jumper, so sprinting is going to help you a ton. And it's also one of the best things you can do for your body composition, for keeping your body fat low. As far as guidelines for sprinting, earlier in the year, you want it to be more general. So that means do more acceleration work, right? Starting a 3-point stance, exploding out of it. Start at like around 20 meters. And then as the year goes on, you want to extend the distance that you're sprinting, lower the ground contact times, and do a lot of upright sprinting. So it's very different. The first part of a sprint, you're using a lot of quad, you're driving your legs hard into the ground to get going. Upright sprinting is different. It's way more elastic. You're going to use your tendons a lot more. You're going to use your posterior chains, your hamstrings, and your glutes way more. So you want to extend the distances. So in the beginning of the year, it might look like hill sprints, 6 by 30 meters or 6 by 20 meters, right? At the end of the year, it might look like 3 sets of 110 meter sprints, right? So that's how you want to extend the distances out and change the sprints over time. Yeah, the shorter the sprint, the less rest that you need. Usually, I like to rest about 1 to 2 minutes for every 10 meters that you're sprinting. Yeah, when it comes to exercises, there isn't a quote-unquote best exercise. They're all tools that you can add to your toolbox. So for squatting, they all have a different benefit. So like a back squat, the total loading is going to be way higher. But you can do deep squats, right? Deep squats, I would use it earlier in the year, increase my potential as an athlete. Then as the year goes on, I might finish the year with half squats. And I might lower the weight and then do rhythm quarter squats even farther into the year for the 1 foot jumpers. And then another reason you want to use multiple variations of exercises is because one of the most important training principles is the principle of variety. The whole objective of exercise is to induce an adaptation. So there's an organism, right? The organism is me and you, we're humans. Around the organism is the environment, right? Okay. Fitness is the ability for that organism to survive the environment. The environment for us is the weight room. That's your training. That's the environment. That's what you're trying to survive. The higher fitness, that means the better you're able to handle the weights, right? The stronger you are, the faster you are. So the thing is, when you subject, and then the whole point of it is to induce adaptation. Adaptation is just your body changing to be able to handle your environment, to be able to survive the environment. What happens though, is if you subject an organism to the same stimulus over and over and over again, the ability for that organism to adapt decreases over time. So let's say you put the organism under, you start doing heavy squats. Your progress is going to go like this at first, but then it's going to go, then it's going to, and then it's going to level out over time. So that's where variety comes in. So that's a back squat. But then what happens if you introduce a front squat? Oh shoot, your body doesn't know what's going on. Boom. Really quick adaptation. Levels up over time. All right, now we're gonna do a split squat. Boom. And then it levels up over time. Now we can go back to back squats, but guess what? Now we're gonna do half. And now you can load it up even more. Same thing, right? Then you might do 2-step squats, where you go halfway up, back down, all the way up. More time under tension, more variety. And you just keep doing that, And generally, you don't want to do that too frequently because your body isn't gonna adapt. You're not gonna give it enough time to adapt to a single stimulus. That's why we use training cycles. So in a 4-week period, we want to have a selection of like 8 to 10 exercises, and we just focus on those exercises. And then during the next 4-week period, we switch those exercises out, bring a new set in. Same thing, 3 weeks of training, 1 week deload, introduce new exercises, and that is the secret to making progress over years and years and years. Because there's athletes out there, like your average jump program, it's 3 months, and the guys just repeat the same 3 months over and over and over again. And that's why with THP, that's one of the things that makes us different, is we have like 100 plus training cycles. Like we have like 10 plus years of training that we can do, and it's always going to look different. And depending on the skill level of the coach, you can get creative, right? The more creative you can be with the exercises, the more long-term progress you can get. And being creative is easy. You just got to think, what uses my quad, right? And if it's a compound movement, even better, because jumping is complex, uses a lot of intermuscular coordination, so you want to choose exercises that are also complex and have a lot of intermuscular coordination. So it is a myth that athletes need to palm the ball to be able to dunk. It's all about momentum. So I always show a drill. I don't know if I have a basketball with me right now. Actually, yeah, I got this one right here. So this is the basketball, right? I can palm it, right? It's a small ball. I can do any trick dunk without using my fingers. So I can literally like transfer like this. No fingers, right? Right? I can go behind the back. No fingers. That's because I learned how to use momentum. The best way to learn how to use momentum, low rim dunking, right? If you don't have a low rim, if you don't have access to that, I put up a video on my YouTube of like all drills, like Pistol Pete Maravich drills and stuff like that. You want to practice that stuff, and you can even do that as a drill. You're not using your fingers, and practice transferring. And just the more reps you get in, you just learn how to use momentum. For one-hand dunks, it's all about pushing. Are you left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
So if you're right-handed, it's all about using your left hand to push the ball as hard as you can into your right hand, and then you want to keep your wrist bent like this. So you push it, keep the wrist bent, fingers wide, and that's going to allow you to have a ton of control on the ball. And then you just rep that out. Eventually it becomes muscle memory, and then you don't need to palm the ball. You'll be able to dunk with better efficiency than someone who can palm the ball. Yeah, that's it still follows load management principles. The first thing you want to do is ISOs. Follow your pain. Your pain is going to give you all the information that you need. So for ISOs, the guidelines is you want to do 3 to 5 sets of 45 seconds. You want to be at like a 3 out of 10 at the beginning of the set, and that should drop down to like no pain by set 3 or 4. Sometimes a little bit of pain, but as long as there's a decrease. As long as there's a decrease by set 3 or 4, that means you were at the correct loading, the right exercise for the ISO. And you can basically do that every 6 hours.